The sun rose over Prime like it had for 3,000 years of peace. The people moved through their crystal cities, their antennae twitching as they shared thoughts and dreams. They had no armies. They had no weapons. Violence was something their ancestors had abandoned long ago, buried in history books that few even read anymore. Bora stood in the central garden, teaching young ones about the old poems. Her 4 arms gestured gracefully as she spoke about beauty and harmony. The children's eyes reflected the morning light, innocent and trusting. None of them knew what was coming from the dark spaces between stars. The ships appeared without warning. Massive and ugly, they blocked out the sun. The Ravagers had found another peaceful world, another easy target. They came with weapons that tore through the sky and soldiers that knew only taking and destroying. Within hours, the southern continent fell silent. The Ravagers landed and began rounding up the people like animals. Bora watched from the northern continent as smoke rose in the distance. Her hands shook as she sent the distress call to the Galactic Confederation Council. Surely someone would help. Surely the civilized galaxy would not abandon them. The council received the message in their great chamber, where representatives from 47 species gathered. They reviewed the situation with grave concern. The nearest military fleet was 6 months away. 6 months was too long. They would be enslaved or dead by then. Ambassador, the senior counselor, made a desperate decision. He ordered the computer to search for any spacefaring species within emergency response range. The database worked through thousands of entries, rejecting each one. Too far, too primitive, no faster-than-light capability. Then it found one result, a small blue planet in an isolated spiral arm. Classification, Death World Category 12. Status, uncontacted, warning level extreme. Read the file with growing unease. Earth was a nightmare planet where everything tried to kill the inhabitants. Extreme weather, deadly predators, diseases that mutated faster than cures, tectonic plates that shifted and destroyed cities. Yet somehow, impossibly, a species had not only survived but had reached space. The other counselors protested. Contact with a Death World species was dangerous. Earth's file contained warnings about aggression, territorial behavior, and something called persistence hunting that sounded disturbing. But looked at the images of children being dragged onto slave ships, and he made the call. The message went out into the darkness, translated into basic mathematical sequences that any spacefaring race would understand. It contained the situation, the coordinates, and a simple plea: help us. On Earth, the message arrived at the United Earth Space Command headquarters in Geneva. Captain was reviewing patrol reports when the communications officer burst into her office, his face pale and excited at the same time. "Captain, you need to see this. We just received a transmission from aliens, real aliens." Stared at the decoded message on her screen. She read it 3 times, her tactical mind already working through the implications. First contact was supposed to be a celebration, a moment of wonder. Instead, it was a distress call from people who were dying while they debated what to do. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. Humans had spent centuries fighting each other over resources, land, and ideas. They had nearly destroyed themselves twice. But in the last 100 years, they had finally united, driven by the dream of reaching the stars and finding others like them. Now they had found others, and those others needed help. Picked up her communicator and called Admiral Menu at Fleet Command. His face appeared on the screen, stern and weathered from 40 years of service. "Admiral, I'm assuming you've seen the alien distress call," said. "I have. The United Nations is meeting right now to discuss first contact protocols. This could take weeks." "Admiral, those people don't have weeks. They have days, maybe hours." Menu was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" "The Indomitable is ready. So are the Defiant, the Relentless, and the Guardian. We can reach those coordinates in 3 weeks if we push the FTL drives hard. Those drives are experimental. We've never sustained maximum speed for that long. It could tear the ships apart. Looked at the message again, at the desperate mathematics that translated to crying children and dying innocents. Then we better make sure our engineering teams are good at their jobs. Sir, we've spent a century wondering if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we're not. And the first thing we learn is that people out there need help. If we don't respond, what does that say about humanity? The Admiral was silent again. Then his expression hardened with resolve. Prep your fleet, Captain. You launch in 6 hours. Show the galaxy what Earth is made of. 5 hours later, stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable as her crew made final preparations. Below her, 3 other warships moved into formation. These were not exploration vessels. They were ships built for combat, designed during the last war when humanity thought it might destroy itself. Now they would serve a different purpose. All ships report ready, Captain, her first officer said. Looked at the stars ahead, knowing that somewhere out there people were suffering. She thought about all the times in human history when good people did nothing while evil happened. Not this time. Not while she had a ship and a crew. Take us to FTL, maximum speed. We have people to save. The 4 human warships punched through reality and disappeared into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, Earth continued spinning, unaware that humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most human way possible. By answering a cry for help. Bora watched the sensor screen with confusion. 3 weeks had passed since the distress call. 3 weeks of watching her people disappear into Ravager ships. 3 weeks of hiding and hopping. The Council had promised help, but the nearest fleet was still months away. Then the sensors screamed. 4 massive contacts dropped out of faster-than-light travel at impossible speeds. The computer calculated the journey time and displayed an error. No species could cross that distance so quickly. The FTL speeds required would destroy any ship. Yet here they were, 4 warships, smaller than Ravager vessels but somehow more frightening. They moved with purpose, taking orbital positions like predators surrounding prey. The communication came through in halting but understandable galactic standard. This is Captain of the United Earth ship Indomitable. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Bora felt her breathing holes flutter with relief and something else. Fear, perhaps. She activated the and froze when she saw the human captain. 2 eyes, forward-facing eyes like a hunter. A mouth that could open to show flat teeth for grinding and sharp ones for tearing. Smooth skin instead of chitin. No antennae to sense intentions. Bora's ancient instincts, buried under 3,000 years of peace, suddenly screamed one word: predator. But the human's voice was steady and calm. Please provide coordinates of hostile forces and civilian populations. We'll begin operations immediately. Operations, Bora managed to ask. Don't you need time to prepare, to plan negotiations? Captain tilted her head slightly, an expression Bora couldn't read. Ambassador Bora, you called for help because you're under attack. We didn't come here to negotiate. We came here to fight. 20 minutes later, the first human landing craft burned through the atmosphere. Sergeant Park checked his rifle one last time as the craft shook around him. 30 Marines sat in the bay, their faces painted with camouflage that made them look even more frightening. Listen up, called out. The people are peaceful, they've never known war. That means the enemy thinks this is easy. We're going to show them they're wrong. Rules of engagement: protect civilians first, eliminate hostile forces second. The Ravagers have been hurting innocent people for 3 weeks. We're going to make them regret every single minute of it. The Marines responded with a unified shout that made the observers flinch. These humans sounded eager for battle. The landing craft hit ground in the southern continent's main city. The Ravagers had set up a command post in what used to be a school. They lounged around, confident and lazy. Why wouldn't they be? They couldn't fight back. The first indication of trouble was when their perimeter guards simply disappeared. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, dragged into darkness by something fast and silent. Then the humans arrived like a storm. Led the assault with tactical precision humans had learned from thousands of years of warfare. They moved through the city in coordinated teams, using cover and concealment. But what terrified the Ravagers most was the speed. Humans ran faster than most species could manage in short bursts, but they didn't stop. They kept running, kept pursuing, kept coming. A Ravager commander tried to rally his troops for a counterattack. He was a veteran of 50 raids, feared across 3 sectors. He fired at the approaching humans, expecting them to take cover or retreat. Instead, one human took a hit to the shoulder, stumbled, and kept coming. The Ravager fired again, hitting the human in the leg. The human fell, rolled, and came up shooting. The Ravager's last thought was confusion. Why didn't the injury stop him? He didn't know about adrenaline. He didn't know that humans had evolved to ignore pain when they were fighting or protecting something. He didn't know that humans had backup systems for their backup systems, redundant organs and blood vessels that kept them moving even when they should have been dead. Within 2 hours, the command post fell. The Ravagers tried to retreat to their ships, but the humans had already secured the landing fields. Corporal Song, a demolitions expert, had mined every approach. The Ravagers found themselves trapped in a city with predators who would not stop hunting them. By dawn, the southern continent was secure. The Ravagers who survived fled to their ships in orbit, only to face Captain's fleet. The space battle was brief and decisive. Human ships moved in patterns that made no tactical sense to the Ravagers. They took risks no sane species would take, pulling maneuvers that should have torn their ships apart. The Ravager fleet commander broadcast a surrender, something he had never done in 30 years of raiding. Captain's response was cold. "You have 6 hours to leave this system. If we detect even one of your ships after that, we will hunt you across the galaxy. Spread the word. Prime is under Earth's protection now." The Ravagers jumped to FTL and ran. On the surface, Bora walked through the liberated city with Sergeant. She saw humans helping injured, offering water and medical care. One Marine named was teaching children a clapping game, his frightening face split in a genuine smile. "I don't understand," Bora said quietly. "Your people fight with such violence, but now you're being so gentle." Looked at the children and then at Bora. "We fight hard because we care. Violence isn't something we enjoy. It's something we're good at because our world forced us to be. But we fight for a reason, to protect people who can't protect themselves. You barely know us. Why risk your lives for strangers?" Was quiet for a moment, watching make the children laugh. "Because someone has to, because we've been where you are, helpless and afraid. We know what it's like to need help and not have it. So when we heard your call, there was never any question. We came." Bora felt something shift in her understanding. These humans were predators, yes. They were violent and dangerous, but they aimed that danger at those who deserved it. They were monsters, perhaps, but they were monsters who chose to protect instead of destroy. That night, Bora sent a message to the Galactic Council. It was brief and shaken. "The humans came. They saved us. But Council members, you need to know what you've contacted. Earth has sent us warriors unlike anything in our records. They fight like demons, but they protect like angels. I don't know if the galaxy is ready for humanity, but ready or not, they're here." In orbit, Captain read the preliminary reports. 0 human casualties, thanks to their medical technology and sheer stubbornness. 200 Ravagers dead, 3,000 captured, 4,000 fled. But more importantly, 15,000 civilians were safe. Allowed herself a small smile. First contact had not been what anyone expected, but perhaps it was what the galaxy needed. She opened a communication channel to Earth Command. "Mission accomplished. They are secure. requesting permission to remain in system until Confederation forces arrive. The response came back after the lightspeed delay. Permission granted, Captain, and welcome to galactic civilization. Try not to scare too many aliens on your first week. Laughed too late for that. The Galactic Council chamber held 47 species, and all of them were talking at once. News of the Prime incident had spread through faster-than-light communication networks like wildfire. A new species had appeared, answered a distress call, and crushed a Ravager force that had terrorized the outer systems for decades. Ambassador stood at the human delegation platform, waiting for the chaos to settle. He was a career diplomat, trained in patience and protocol, but even he felt nervous. Behind him stood Captain in her military uniform and 3 other human representatives. They were humanity's first impression on the galactic stage. The council speaker, a tall being made of crystalline structures, finally brought order. Ambassador of Earth, you have requested formal introduction to the Confederation. Given recent events, we have many questions. Bowed slightly, a human gesture of respect. Honored Council, humanity thanks you for this opportunity. We regret that our first contact came during a crisis, but we could not ignore a cry for help. Could not or would not? The question came from Counselor, a reptilian diplomat known for his sharp mind. Ambassador, your species crossed impossible distances at speeds that should have destroyed your ships. You deployed military forces within hours of arrival. You defeated a Ravager fleet that outnumbered you 3-1. This is not the behavior of a peaceful species. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Had expected this. He nodded to his assistant, who activated the main. Honored Council, I believe the best way to answer your concerns is to show you Earth. The screen displayed humanity's home world, a blue and green sphere, beautiful and inviting. Then the images changed. Hurricanes that could destroy cities, earthquakes that split the ground, volcanoes that buried entire regions, animals with claws and teeth and venom, diseases that killed millions before humans learned to fight them. Earth is classified as a death world category 12, explained. For 4 million years our planet tried to kill us, predators hunted us, weather killed us. Diseases nearly wiped us out multiple times. We had no natural armor, no venom, no claws, just our minds and our ability to work together. The screen showed human history, tribes forming, communities building, wars, yes, but also art and music and medicine. Humans reaching into space despite the dangers, driven by curiosity and hope. We survived because we learned to adapt. We learned to think. We learned to never give up. Our evolution made us persistent hunters. We can run for hours without stopping. We can survive injuries that would kill most species. Our bodies produce chemicals that let us ignore pain and fear when necessary. A counselor from a peaceful herbivore species stood up, her voice shaking. You're describing a nightmare species, persistent predators with high pain tolerance and pack coordination. This is what we feared when we classified death worlds as forbidden contact. Met her gaze calmly. I understand your fear, but let me show you something else. The screen changed to footage from Prime. Human Marines helping civilians. A medic named spending 18 hours straight treating injured. Sergeant Park sharing his rations with hungry children. Humans crying when they found families separated by the raid. Yes, we are dangerous, said quietly. Our world made us that way, but it also taught us compassion. When you live on a planet that constantly tries to kill you, you learn the value of helping others survive. You learn that cooperation is the only way forward. We fight hard, honored council, but we fight for a reason. We fight to protect. Studied the images carefully. Your medical technology is remarkable. That Marine who was shot in your footage, he should have been incapacitated. Yet he continued fighting. Our bodies have redundant systems, Captain spoke for the first time. Backup organs, multiple blood vessels, chemical responses that keep us moving in emergencies. It's not pleasant, but it kept our ancestors alive long enough to reproduce. And the aggression? Another counselor asked. The Ravagers reported that your soldiers seemed to become more violent when injured or when they saw civilians threatened. Nodded. Adrenaline response. When we perceive a threat to ourselves or especially to those we protect, our bodies flood with chemicals that increase strength, speed, and aggression while decreasing pain sensitivity. It's automatic. We evolved it because on Earth, running away wasn't always an option. The chamber fell silent as the council members absorbed this information. Finally, the speaker addressed again. Ambassador, you asked earlier why we classify death worlds as forbidden. It's because species from such worlds often become conquerors. They have the strength and aggression to dominate peaceful civilizations. Had prepared for this moment. Honored speaker, may I tell you about a human concept called empathy? We understand empathy. Many species possess it. Yes, but human empathy is different. We don't just understand that others are suffering. We feel it, almost like it's happening to us. Our mirror neurons fire when we see pain in others. It physically hurts us to watch someone else suffer. He paused, letting that sink in. For millions of years, this kept our tribes together. We took care of our injured. We protected our weak. We couldn't survive alone, so we evolved to care deeply about our groups. And as we grew, our definition of our group expanded. First families, then tribes, then nations, then our whole species. And now we meet you. The screen showed more footage. Human ships arriving at Prime. Humans hearing the distress call and immediately moving to help complete strangers. When we received your message, there was no debate about whether to help. The only question was how fast we could get there. Because once we heard that cry for aid, that became part of our group, and we protect our group. Counselor leaned forward. You're saying your species will defend the Confederation. If you'll have us, replied. We're not conquerors, honored council. We're survivors. And we learned long ago that the best way to survive is to make sure everyone around us survives too. The vote took 3 hours of debate. In the end, humanity was granted provisional membership in the Galactic Confederation. They would be monitored. Their military expansion would be limited, but they were in. As the session ended, Bora approached in the corridor. Ambassador, I wanted to thank you personally. Your people saved my world. Smiled warmly. We did what anyone should do. How are your people recovering? Slowly, but we have help. Specialist, your medic, she stayed behind. She's teaching our doctors human medical techniques. Did you know she spent her own money to buy supplies for our hospitals? Wasn't surprised. That sounds like she joined the military to help people, not to fight. That's what I'm learning about humans, Bora said thoughtfully. You're all warriors, but many of you would rather not be. You fight because you must, not because you want to. Exactly. We've had enough war on Earth to last a lifetime. We came to space hopping to find peace. Instead, we found people who needed help, so we helped. Bora touched his hand gently with one of her 4 arms. The galaxy is frightened of you, Ambassador, but I think that fear might turn into something else eventually. What's that? Relief. Relief that if they ever need help, Earth's warriors will answer. That night stood in his quarters watching Earth through the viewport. Somewhere down there, 8 billion people were going about their lives, unaware that humanity had just joined a galactic community of trillions. They didn't know they were being watched with fear and wonder, but knew something the Council was just beginning to understand. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their toughness or their weapons or their stubborn refusal to quit. It was their ability to care about people they'd never met, to hear a cry for help from across the stars and answer without hesitation. The galaxy had called Earth's people monsters. They weren't wrong, but they were monsters who chose kindness over cruelty, protection over domination, hope over fear. And maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed. 6 months after first contact, the Ravagers made their biggest mistake. They thought Prime was a fluke. They thought humans got lucky. So they gathered their forces, hired 3 mercenary fleets, and planned revenge. The attacks came without warning, striking 3 Confederation worlds at once. One was a mining colony called. Another was a trading hub named Talai Station. The third was Prime again. The Ravagers wanted to prove that humans couldn't be everywhere. They were wrong. Captain received the distress calls on the bridge of the Indomitable. Her ship was patrolling near Confederation space with 5 other Earth vessels. She looked at the tactical display showing 3 attacks happening simultaneously, each 1 day apart by conventional travel. "They're testing us," her first officer said, "seeing if we'll spread our forces thin or abandon worlds to save others." Smiled coldly. "Then let's teach them about human logistics. Communications, contact the Confederation fleet. Tell them we're coordinating a joint response. Navigation, plot FTL jumps to all 3 locations. We're going to hit them in sequence, fast and hard." "Captain, if we push the FTL drives that hard repeatedly, we'll burn them out," the engineering officer warned. "Then we better make each strike count. We'll save the drives or we'll save people. I know which one I choose." The human ships jumped first to where Ravagers were rounding up miners. Lieutenant Han led the fighter screen, his small craft dancing through space with maneuvers that made the other Confederation pilots gasp. Human pilots pulled G-forces that would have knocked most species unconscious. They had special suits and training, but mostly they had stubbornness. "Bandit on your 6, his wingman called. Spun his fighter in a corkscrew that would have shredded a less robust species. "Not anymore," he replied calmly as his guns took out the enemy. He had been flying for 7 hours straight. His hands were shaking from fatigue. He didn't care. The battle lasted 3 hours. The human ships and their Confederation allies drove the Ravagers back, but barely. The enemy had numbers and firepower. What they didn't have was humans who refused to accept defeat. "All ships jump to Talai Station," ordered. "We're not done yet." The Confederation commander, a 4-armed named who had joined the military after watching humans save his world, protested. "Captain, your crews need rest. Your ships need repairs. The people at Talai Station need help now. We rest when they're safe." The human fleet jumped again, arriving at Talai Station to find a desperate battle. The station's shields were failing. Civilian ships were trying to evacuate. Mercenary fighters were hunting them down. Combat engineer Sara looked at the station's damage readouts and swore. "The defense grid is completely fried. It'll take days to fix properly." "We don't have days," her commander said. Sara grinned, a human expression that showed teeth. "I said properly. Give me 6 hours and some spare parts, and I'll give you something that works through sheer stubbornness." She worked like humans had worked for thousands of years when survival depended on it. No sleep, no breaks, just focus and determination. When other engineers said something was impossible, Sara found a way. She rerouted power through cargo systems. She used emergency batteries meant for life support. She jury-rigged connections that made the station's original designers weep. 6 hours later, the defense grid came online. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't safe, but it worked, and that's what mattered. The battle for Talai Station was won, but barely. 3 human ships were damaged. Casualties were mounting, but they jumped again, heading for Prime, where the heaviest attack was happening. Bora stood in the capital city's emergency shelter, listening to the sounds of battle overhead. The Ravagers had come in force this time, determined to break humanity's reputation. She thought about Specialist, who had stayed on Prime to help train medical staff. Was out there somewhere, helping the wounded under fire. Then she felt the shelter shake as human dropships hit the atmosphere. They had come, again. Sergeant Park was older now, promoted to lieutenant after Prime, but he still led from the front. His platoon hit the ground running, linking up with defense forces. The people had been learning from humans. They still weren't violent by nature, but they could defend their homes now. "Remember your training," told a young soldier who was shaking with fear. "You don't have to love fighting. You just have to be willing to protect what you love. Can you do that?" The straightened his antennae. "Yes, Lieutenant." "Good, stay close and watch my back. I'll watch yours." The battle for Prime was brutal. The Ravagers had prepared for human tactics this time. They had studied the footage, learned the patterns, but they hadn't understood the core truth about humans: adaptability. When the Ravagers set traps, humans went around them. When they blocked routes, humans made new ones. When they tried to predict human behavior, humans changed tactics. This was what evolution on Earth had taught humanity: adapt or die. Specialist worked in a field hospital, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. She had been treating wounded for 16 hours straight. Her body ached. Her eyes burned from fatigue. A nurse named watched in amazement as kept working. "How are you still standing?" asked. Smiled tiredly. "Because people still need help. I'll rest when everyone's safe." "But you're just one person. You can't save everyone." "Maybe not, but I can save the next one, and then the one after that. That's how humans think. We focus on what we can do, not what we can't." In orbit, Captain coordinated with Commander and the other Confederation forces. The combined fleet was pushing back the Ravagers, but it was close. Too close. "Captain, FTL drives are at critical levels," her engineering officer reported. "One more jump might tear the ship apart." Looked at the tactical display. The Ravager command ship was trying to escape. If it got away, this would happen again. More attacks, more deaths. "All power to weapons," she ordered. "We're ending this now." "Captain, that's not." "I know what I'm doing, trust me." The Indomitable surged forward, drawing fire from multiple enemy ships. Alarms screamed as hull plates took damage, but kept going, kept pushing, kept refusing to quit. It was the most human thing possible, succeeding through sheer willpower and spite. The Indomitable's main guns fired, and the Ravager command ship exploded. The remaining enemy forces broke and ran. 3 days later stood on Prime with Ambassador, Lieutenant, Specialist, and dozens of other humans and Confederation personnel. They were exhausted. Some were injured. All of them were proud. Bora approached with Commander. "Captain, on behalf of the people and the Confederation, thank you. You saved 3 worlds." Shook her head. "We saved them together. Your people fought alongside us. Commander's fleet was essential to our victory. This wasn't just human strength. This was what we can do when we work together." Still said quietly, "Without Earth's refusal to quit, we would have failed. You pushed your ships beyond their limits. You fought for days without rest. Why?" Lieutenant answered, surprising everyone. "Because you're pack now. Because 6 months ago you trusted us to help you. That makes you family, and humans protect family." The word spread through the Confederation networks. Across dozens of worlds, people heard about the 3 battles. They saw footage of human crews pushing themselves to exhaustion. They watched Sora repair a station through impossible improvisation. They saw Han flying for 19 hours straight. They witnessed saving lives while bombs fell around her. The galaxy had feared humanity's capacity for violence. Now they were beginning to understand that violence was just a tool humans used for a greater purpose, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. In the black markets and mercenary stations, a new warning spread. "Don't touch Confederation worlds. The humans have decided their pack, and you don't want to know what humans do to threats against their pack." The Ravagers learned this lesson the hard way. Within a year, their organization collapsed. Nobody would work with them anymore. The risk wasn't worth the reward. That night, as repairs began on all 3 worlds, Captain sat with her tired crew in the Indomitable's mess hall. They had saved 3 worlds in 1 week. They had proven that humanity belonged in the stars. "Captain," a young ensign asked, "do you think we'll always have to fight?" Considered the question carefully. "I hope not. I hope someday the galaxy will be peaceful enough that warriors like us aren't needed. But until that day comes, we'll be ready. Because that's what humans do. We hope for the best and prepare for the worst." She raised her cup. "To the Confederation, to our allies, to everyone who stood with us." The crew raised their cups together. "To the pack." 1 year after first contact, the Galactic Council chamber was filled to capacity. Species from every corner of the Confederation had come to witness Earth's formal induction as a full member. No more provisional status. No more monitoring. Today, humanity would take its place among the stars as equals. Ambassador stood at the human platform, older now, with gray in his hair that hadn't been there a year ago. Behind him stood Captain, Lieutenant Park, Specialist, Engineer Sara, and Pilot Han. They represented the best of humanity, but also the reality. Humans were warriors, healers, builders, and dreamers all at once. The council speaker called the session to order. "We gather today to vote on Earth's full membership. The past year has been remarkable. Humanity has defended 3 worlds, established peaceful relations with 17 species, and contributed medical and engineering advances that have benefited us all. However, questions remain. Ambassador, the Council would like to hear your people's intentions before we vote." Bowed respectfully. "Thank you, honored speaker. I'll be brief. Humanity doesn't seek to dominate or control, we seek partnership. We've spent our entire history fighting, struggling, surviving. We came to the stars hopping to find something better. We found you. And we'd like to be part of building a future where everyone can thrive." Counselor, who had questioned humans so harshly a year ago, stood up. "Ambassador, I must confess I was wrong about your species. I feared you would be conquerors. Instead, you've become the Confederation's most dedicated protectors. But I want to understand why. What drives humans to risk so much for others?" Before could answer, Bora rose from the delegation. "Honored Council, may I speak?" The speaker nodded. "Ambassador Bora, you have the floor." Bora walked to the center of the chamber, her 4 arms gesturing gracefully. 1 year ago, my world was dying. We had no hope. The Ravagers were taking our children, burning our cities. We sent a distress call expecting no answer, or perhaps a polite message saying help would come eventually when it was convenient. She paused, her antennae trembling with emotion. "Instead, Earth sent its monsters. That's what I thought when I first saw Captain. Monsters with predator eyes and teeth and violence in their blood. I was terrified. Then I watched those monsters fight for us, bleed for us, cry with us when they found our children hurt." Bora turned to face the human delegation. "I've spent this past year with humans. I've learned their history. I've seen their art and music. I've listened to their stories. And I've come to understand something the Council needs to know. Yes, Earth made humanity into warriors, but it also made them into something else. It made them into people who care." She activated a showing images from the past year, teaching doctors new medical techniques, Park helping rebuild schools on 3 worlds, Sara designing better shields for civilian stations, Han training Confederation pilots not just to fight, but to survive. "Humans fight hard because they care hard," Bora continued. "Their world taught them that survival means helping others survive. They evolved empathy as a survival trait. When they see suffering, they feel it like it's their own. They can't ignore a cry for help any more than they can stop breathing." A council member from a peaceful species spoke up. "But Ambassador Bora, we've seen human history. They've fought terrible wars among themselves. They've killed millions of their own kind. How can we trust them?" Bora nodded. "That's exactly why we should trust them. They know the cost of violence. They've lived through it. Every human carries the weight of their species' mistakes. They don't glorify war. They endure it because sometimes it's necessary to protect innocent lives." She looked at, "Ambassador, you told us once about a human saying. What was it?" smiled sadly. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Yes, humans remember their mistakes. They teach their children about them. They make sure each new generation understands the horror of violence. That's not the behavior of conquerors. That's the behavior of people who desperately want peace but know how to survive when peace fails. The chamber fell silent. Then Commander of the Defense Forces stood. He had been one of the first aliens to train alongside humans. I want to add something. I've fought beside humans. I've seen them at their worst and their best. When they're angry, they're terrifying. But you know what makes them angry? Seeing innocent people hurt, watching the weak being bullied, finding children crying. That's what triggers their rage. Not ambition, not greed, injustice. He gestured to Lieutenant. Lieutenant Park once told me something I'll never forget. He said humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Humans can't do nothing. It's not in their nature. When they hear a cry for help, they answer. Every time, even when it's dangerous, even when it costs them, they answer. More testimonials followed. A doctor from Talai Station who had trained, an engineer from who worked with Sara, a pilot who had flown with. Each one told stories of humans who were fierce in battle and gentle in peace. Finally, the council speaker called for the vote. All in favor of granting Earth full membership in the Galactic Confederation. The vote was unanimous. The chamber erupted in approval, felt tears in his eyes as he watched humans and aliens celebrating together. A year ago, humanity had been alone. Now they were part of something bigger. That evening, there was a celebration at the Confederation Embassy. Hundreds of species mingled, sharing food and stories. Found herself talking with young aliens who wanted to join the Confederation Defense Forces. Is it true you pushed your ship past safety limits 3 times in 1 week? A eager cadet asked. Laughed, yes, but don't tell my engineers. They're still mad about it, and don't make it a habit. We took those risks because we had to, because lives were at stake. That's the key, understanding when rules can be broken and when they can't. Across the room was teaching a group of children a human game called tag. They ran through the embassy gardens, laughing and shrieking. Bora watched with wonder. A year ago, our children were traumatized by violence. Now they play with the very warriors who saved them. Kids are resilient, said. They heal faster than adults, emotionally I mean, though humans heal pretty fast physically too. I've noticed. Your species' medical technology is remarkable. Shrugged, we had to get good at fixing ourselves. When you live on a death world, you either learn medicine or you die out. We chose learning. Stood on a balcony with the nurse who had worked with her during the battle. I'm going to Miss Prime, said. I've been reassigned to a medical station near the frontier. You could stay, offered. We need good teachers. I know, but there are other people who need help, other worlds that might face what you faced. I need to be ready. Touched hand gently. You humans are strange. You could rest, enjoy peace, but you always prepare for the next crisis. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, quoted. It's kept us alive this long. Later, as the party wound down, the core group of humans gathered on the embassy roof. Sara, and looked up at the stars. We did it, Sora said quietly. We're officially part of the galactic community. Think we'll change it? Asked. Considered the question. We already have. A year ago, the Confederation was vast but complacent. They had forgotten that peace requires vigilance. We reminded them, not through conquest but through example. Do you think they'll ever truly understand us? Wondered. Smiled, maybe not completely. We're different from most species out here. More violent, more stubborn, more willing to take risks. But I think they're starting to see that those traits aren't just about destruction. They're about survival, about protecting what matters. We're still monsters in some ways, said softly. We can't change what evolution made us. No, agreed. But we can choose what kind of monsters to be. The galaxy called us monsters when we arrived. Fine, we'll be monsters, but we'll be monsters who protect the innocent, monsters who cry at poetry and charge into battle for strangers, monsters who care." They stood in comfortable silence, watching ships come and go from the station. Earth's blue dot was visible in the distance, a small marble in the vast darkness. 8 billion people lived there, most of them unaware of how much the galaxy had changed. A new distress call came through on their communicators. A mining colony on the frontier was under attack by pirates. Checked her crew's status. Her ship was barely repaired. Her crew was exhausted. The colony was 3 days away at maximum FTL. They should wait for other ships. They should rest. "Prep the Indomitable," she ordered. "We launch in 2 hours." Nobody questioned the decision. They just nodded and headed to their stations, because this was who humans were. This was what they did. As walked to the landing bay, she thought about Bora's words, monsters who care. It was a good description. Humanity had spent millions of years becoming the most dangerous species on their planet. Now they were using that danger to protect others. The galaxy had sent out a cry for aid, and Earth's monsters had answered. They would keep answering. For as long as people needed help, humans would be there, fighting when necessary, healing when possible, building, protecting, caring. The Indomitable lifted off, its FTL drives charging for another impossible jump. Behind it, 40 other Confederation ships followed, not because they had to, because humans had taught them something important. When someone calls for help, you answer, every time, without hesitation. The galaxy was changing, slowly, carefully, but it was changing. And at the heart of that change were humans, Earth's monsters, who had decided that caring was the greatest strength of all. In the endless dark between stars, a small mining colony waited nervously for rescue. They had heard stories about the humans, about their violence and their mercy. They didn't know if those stories were true. They were about to find out. Because Earth's monsters were coming. And they always answered the call.